So I'm currently sitting in Bayfront Park in Sarasota, Florida, and it's a beautiful Sunday, December 21st, and I'm looking out at the water, which I'm going to flip this around so that you can see. This is the bay here in Sarasota, and behind me you might see in the skyline a lot of condo towers here in Sarasota. And so I have for a while had the Watchdog wire in Southwest Ohio, and that is currently averaging about 4 or 5 million views per month. But I've always wanted to have a Watchdog wire focused specifically on the condo world here in Florida, which is an absolute mess. So I've broken down what are the key areas of issues with condos here in Florida in terms of 4 categories. One of them is operational. One of them is oversight. The third one is physical and maintenance. The fourth one is the law. And the fifth one, that has only one item, is owners themselves. So over time on the Watchdog Wire Florida condo, which is going to be a very secondary focus for me, I'm going to cover each of those, because in Florida, when you get familiar with the condo community, just to start from the top, you find out that the communities around them that are involved with operations, like licensed community association managers, like management companies, and like law firms, is pretty much of a racket. The law firms here many of them are terrible, incompetent, not interested in protecting owners, but rather interested in a financial gravy train that comes from condo association boards. You have community association managers, which are licensed by the state. Many of them are incompetent. They tend to bounce around between management companies that are wholly ineffective, don't do proper training, and don't deal with the real core issues of the condo world here in Florida. So you have all of these things, and on top of them put boards, which are in many cases very dysfunctional, very clickish, involving lots of people who do not have competence or expertise in what they're doing, and that have caused a situation in which, for example, you have buildings literally collapsing. So beyond that, you have the law, the legislature, and what is called the division. So in Florida, the laws keep getting tighter and tighter. The legislature keeps making more and more laws to protect owners. But what happens is there is a thing called the division, and it's some long-ass dumb name, like the division of timeshares, mobile homes, condos, trailer parks. It's like the longest ever name, but I call it the division. That is entirely ineffective at enforcing the law or being an advocate for proper management within condo associations. Many of them, because they're lawyers and stuff, maybe they want to get a job with a management company or with a law firm that does condo work later. So as I go through this channel and what I focus on, I'm going to focus on all of these things. Now, what's my pedigree? I own a condo. My wife and I own a condo here. The condo had been being poorly managed, but it can be hard to tell. It looks good. Everything looks good. And it's been poorly managed. And then it basically got shitbanged by a series of hurricanes. Most noteworthy are Ian and Milton. Ian for us was a windstorm. Milton was a storm surge. And that really exposed the utter sort of incompetence of management associations, lawyers, and boards. In our case, personally. Throw into that mix a very ineffective division and fly-by-night construction companies that come in to fix these places when something happens that throws them off kilter. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my personal pedigree and my experience and why I feel like I am a good person to start something that's not tied to a management company, not tied to a law firm, not tied to a board, that focuses on some of these key issues. But let's quit sitting here and let's walk around a little bit in this beautiful park here in Sarasota, and I'll talk more. So let's talk about my pedigree a little bit and my involvement with this. So as you know, I'm pretty well known in southwestern Ohio as a government reform and transparency advocate. And that creates some like and a lot of dislike, because nobody likes people picking at a system that people rely on for their livelihood. So here in Florida, the condo laws are actually very evolved in relation to, what you would find in Ohio or other places, because I believe, 50%, some very high percentage of Floridians are tied to condo communities or homeowners associations. So there's a very big body of law, and that law gives condo owners certain rights. It deals with records, and a lot of it is very much like government law in a government record and management law in Ohio. So seeing the utter mismanagement of our condo complex, that I'll probably go into detail on, just to give you examples, because there's lots of lessons to learn, and they've learned very few of them, to be honest. But at our condo complex, within the mismanagement, there are two things that are in place in statute that specifically can allow an owner to try to protect their interest or try to force a board to comply with the law. So the laws get more and more tight, that more requirements because of dysfunctional boards, crooked lawyers, crooked management companies. The laws get more and more tight. There's this entity that I call the division that is supposed to help owners with enforcing those laws. It's absolutely terrible, absolutely dysfunctional. But they provide fundamentally two means for owners to try to push back against incompetence and corruption in their condo boards. One of them is arbitration. Another one is filing complaints. So arbitration, I'm going to call it arbitration, but it's really alternative dispute resolution, which is two things: arbitration and mediation, and they kind of go hand in hand. The other thing is filing complaints. So I have done both. And I'm going to talk through this blog in more detail over time on the complete ineffectiveness of both approaches, although I've been very successful in both. And let me go into each one of them. By the way, this is one of the many beautiful things here in this park. You can look out and see the beauty. A lot of places here in Sarasota have kind of a circus-looking theme to them, because Sarasota was the headquarters and is the headquarters for Ringling. John Ringling was a great philanthropist here in Sarasota. The Ringling Museum is not to be missed if you come to Southwest Florida. But there's also a lot of philanthropic things like the Ringling College of Art, I believe it's called. And the circus, I think the circus has been a little bit revived. It became corporate. I think Mattel bought the circus. But this was known as the summer home of the Ringling Brothers circuses. So a lot of these like domes and stuff, they're not so much like you might think, well, they're Middle Eastern. They're not so much Middle Eastern, they're circus. And they're nods to the circus heritage here in Sarasota. Okay, so let's get back to a little more of my pedigree. So on the front of complaints, I have probably filed maybe 4 or 5 complaints. The complaint process is completely ridiculous. They like to tout, I'm a very conservative guy, and this is supposedly a conservative government state, but it's basically fraudulent the way they handle complaints. They say they deal with complaints in 30 days. What that means is they send you a letter telling you they've received your complaint effectively. And then they drag on for literally a year, 2 years, and it's almost like functional, low IQ people are dealing with them. I've dealt with one person that was an investigator that was excellent, but most everybody's like a low IQ person that probably can't get a better job than dealing with complaints. And they effectively evade doing anything on complaints and stretch them out forever. So you'll start to get, if you file a complaint with the division, you'll start to get emails like every 30, 60 days telling you that your complaint, they have your complaint, but it will just list the number. It won't tell you even what the complaint was. So you can't even remember. If you filed more than one, you'd be totally confused as to what are they even talking about in these letters. So you'd have to go do a research project. So Of the 4 or 5 I filed, I actually had 2 be resolved in my favor. One of them dealt with a community association manager, that's the licensed managers of condo communities, hiding records illegally. By the way, that's now been made a crime in some cases. But she was hiding records. I did a complaint. I don't know, it was a long ass time after I did the complaint. She actually got cited and fined for having hid records. And then the funny part is about, I don't know, sometime later, not that long, less than a year after that, I believe, she was hiding records again. Again, hiding records from owners. The owners have a right to the records. And she then resigned because she was afraid of actually losing her license for having got caught again hiding records. There's a lot of manifestation there of the corruption of boards, of the corruption of management companies, of the corruption of CAMs, and in the corruption of law firms that would even allow situations where records are being hidden from owners at a condo association. Another one that I filed had to do with, at our association, they had something on the order of at least 3 years in a row where the audited financial statements were not produced in a timely fashion. There's some rule, I think it's either 120 or 180 days that audited financials have to be produced, and they were not produced 3 years running. I had complained to the association about this for years, and the corrupt, dysfunctional board did nothing. They continued to not produce audited financial statements. By the way, a board being indignant and outraged because an owner went to see records, or a board being indignant and outraged because an owner expects that they would produce, for example, financial statements and audit financial statements timely, is a tell to their corruption and incompetence. It's always a tell to their corruption and incompetence. So on that complaint, it got basically, they had to sign a consent order and pay a fine for not having produced financial statements. And then since then, the financial statements have been qualified opinions. Or if you know about financial statements, that tells you something too. If you're on a board and you have to sign off on qualified financial statements, that says something about you. That says something a lot about you. So anyway, there's I think 3 or so other complaints I filed. Frankly, probably a couple of them are still open. The irony is the second one on the CAM that had hidden records, that actually got sort of dismissed, so she wouldn't have actually lost her license over it. So, but I think a couple of them are probably still open. It's almost impossible to tell where they stand. Now, on another front, a more serious front, is arbitration. And mediation would be part of that as well. But I've never really done mediation. I have, as it relates to our condo association, filed and prevailed in 5 arbitrations. That's a tell. That's a tell. Where the board, the association has literally spent, I bet you they spent $100,000 fighting arbitrations that they could not possibly win. And why do I say that? Because I don't file stuff that I think there would be any chance of losing. Why would I want to do that? I want to file stuff that's like layups where I think it's going to be an easy win. Those of you that know me know that even when you do things that should be easy wins, the system typically tries to protect insiders. So as a result, you know, even when you think it's a total layup win, you think, well, I could still lose or fail within that. So, but I did 5. Technically, I only prevailed in 4. The 5th one, they complied with the demand before it went through the system, so it got dismissed, but I effectively won that as well. So I have that experience with 5 of those. As an aside, you can do a arbitration here in Florida and have somebody else represent you, not a lawyer. It doesn't need to be a lawyer. So hey, if you hear this video and you got some ridiculous thing going on at your association and you want to file arbitration, let me know. Might help you out, might do the paperwork for you. But the whole arbitration process is largely a joke. I'm familiar with bureaucratic, crooked processes in Ohio, so I'm familiar with it. So I was used to the idiocy of it. But let me describe for you a little bit how arbitration works here. So one of the things here in Florida is that they had a ballot initiative to legalize marijuana, and it failed. It actually failed. Unlike Ohio, it failed. And so there's people here in this park taking signatures for doing another ballot initiative to legalize marijuana. Yeah, by the way, in this park here, I'm all for biking, but nowadays with these e-bikes and in these parks on the sidewalks, it's kind of like it feels dangerous to be an actual pedestrian because you end up getting thinking you're going to get run over by an e-bike that's flying through the park. Okay, let me see. I haven't even thought about this, but I think I can probably name 3, 4, 5 reasons why arbitration's so screwed up here. First, the paperwork is not intuitive at all, not well laid out, and so I know somebody who multiple times has tried to file for arbitration, couldn't even get the paperwork done right. So that's ding number one. Second thing is, everything assumes that the person filing has a fax machine. Now let's ponder this for a second. Fax machine. Okay, this is 2025, soon to be 2026. How many people have a fax machine today? Especially, maybe law firms do, but it basically makes it impossible. So what's so funny is the division will use email to send things back and forth to you, but you're not allowed to use email. You have to fax stuff to them or mail it. It's absolutely absurd. The third thing is the arbiters themselves. I've only dealt with 2. One was pretty good. Managed the process pretty well. The other one that I'm going to go into detail on in streams in the future or blogs in the future was absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. These people, it's like lawyers that could not get work anywhere else have become division lawyers to do arbitrations for divisions. And it's absolutely terrible. So the arbitration process itself is clear as mud. The arbiter will issue orders and so forth in the process. One of the things as an owner, you don't have access. They used to have a repository online of arbitration cases and resolutions. They took that away. So you can't easily go find any cases. Now I'm told you can go to the library and there's some legal system you can go at a library and find these. But if you want to find a case law around condo law or homeowner association law in Florida, you can't find it on any division website. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible the way that it works. And the hearing process is probably, I'm going to use a bad word you're not supposed to use, one of the most retarded things I've ever seen. So I've only had a hearing once, an arbitration out of 5, where it actually went to a hearing. And it was with the arbiter that was absolutely terrible, that should not be employed by the state of Florida, should not be getting $1 from the taxpayers of Florida. So in that arbitration, they just do crazy things like that. For example, I was told that I needed to provide my own person to swear people in to testify. Okay, I've never seen this before. In Ohio, there's a court reporter there at these kind of things, a quasi-judicial hearing, and they can swear people in. The Florida code, which is called administrative code, and the rules around arbitration specifically say that the arbiter can swear people in. But this ficus tree arbiter said he didn't want to swear people in because it was like a conflict of interest for him to swear people in. It makes no sense. I tried to record arbitration twice, and that becomes a problem. Okay, would not be a problem in Ohio if it was under rules of superintendence for a court. You'd be able to record under Rule 12. If it was under the open meetings law, it'd be able to record naturally as part of the open meetings law. But it's like the division doesn't want there to be a record of its own incompetence and inability to get anything done. So there's a lot of things that I'll dig into on this channel and in blogs here. And it's going to be about how owners can try to get justice for themselves in a world in which the division is terrible, in which the legal community is terrible, in which management companies are terrible. And just by reference, the legal community here, they basically won't work with owners because owners aren't enough money for them. So they work with, they want to work with associations and management companies because they can make a lot of money off that. If you try to find a lawyer here, I never saw anything like it. There's not a lawyer here that they won't even talk to you without you giving them $450. That's how bad it is here. I don't have those kind of issues in Ohio with lawyers. I get to talk to a lot of lawyers. But here in Florida, in the condo world, it's absolutely horrific how bad the legal community is. A lot of them don't even know the law. I know the law better than the lawyers that our association has. They're terrible. You know, these are I know the law better than they do. And because they're never challenged. They don't know how to do arbitrations right. They don't know, because very few owners can ever get, because the division makes it almost impossible for an owner to take something forward. They hardly ever have to be challenged in these particular ways. So as I go through this blog, I'm going to kind of hit all of it. I'm also going to hit and use and repeat resources that I think are valuable or that I respect. Two of them are the Cyber Citizens for Justice newsletter. Oh, I think it's very misguided because it's very clunky and not action-oriented. The other one is attorney Eric Glazer, which I respect. He has a radio show or now a stream on YouTube, and he seems to really be about the owner's interest, not the management company's interest. But I've dealt with him too, and you know, there's a lot of, you know, go along to get along that happens here. I'm also, through the course of this blog, going to try to talk to some legislators here on how is it that they can keep tightening up the laws while they don't then do anything to make the division actually enforce the laws. It's kind of meaningless when they do that. I will also get into local government. So local government, on a condo rebuild, they're complicit in a lot of disasters at condo associations because of their inspection and permitting process, and they permit fly-by-night companies. But also they're the ones that would be responsible for enforcing a bunch of new laws that make things criminal. And it'll be interesting in Charlotte County, where our condo is, I wonder if the law enforcement there has ever, or the prosecutor has ever enforced anything. My dealing with them in one matter that dealt with an unlicensed contractor was that they were cover-up people in Charlotte County. Absolutely terrible. So I'm going to try to drill into it. It's similar. I had somebody come visit me, and I described here as the southern front for me, because I ran smack dab into this condo chaos down here through a couple of hurricanes. I tell you, you don't realize how bad it is till there's something that happens that creates some trauma. This statue behind me is a statue called Unconditional Surrender. And you might recognize it as a famous New York Times photograph after World War II at the unconditional surrender of Japan. So it's a massive statue, and it's the iconic picture of the sailor kissing a nurse when it was announced that Japan had unconditionally surrendered. And I've never actually come to see it up close. It was meant to be a temporary exhibit, and I think in 2005 or so, it became quasi-permanent, but like it got hit by a car once, it's been moved around a little. And it also became controversial when a woke mob wanted it taken down as reflecting non-consensual sexual activity. And because apparently the nurse involved said it wasn't consensual that the guy kissed her. All right, ladies, that's all the guy did. Suck it up, deal with it, all right? We just won a war, and he's wearing a Navy uniform and probably thought he could get killed, but he might be a dirtbag anyway, but it's still an iconic picture, and we should just roll with it. So this statue has never been taken down here other than on temporary basis or in the midst of controversy or getting hit by a car. But the art board voted unanimously to take it down, but the county commissioners here in Sarasota County voted to keep it up. So there's 5 commissioners in a county by default in Florida, and the vote of the commissioners was 4-1 after the art board unanimously voted to take the statue down because of its misogynism. Okay, so that's it. That's the first ever blog from what's going to be the very limited focus, at least right now, Florida Watchdog Wire. What I'm going to try to do is every now and then I'll post something or share something that's about condo news here. If you have something that you think should be shared or discussed, message it to me or get it to me, and I'll look at it and try to put it out there. I'm going to have almost no bandwidth to do this, but I'm going to try to do it the best as I can because I think somebody needs to do it. I'll see if I can get any interviews on here about the state of condos here in Florida. And I'll give my opinions and critiques of things going on. And again, if you are facing a asinine situation at your condo association, including at the one I'm at, if you know me there, let me know. You don't have to have a lawyer represent you in arbitration. I'm glad. And some of these things that I think would be important cases to be work for the condo community, I'd be glad to try to do it. I'm very limited bandwidth, but I know how to do all the paperwork, and at least at present, this won't hold up, but at least at present, I'm 5-0 when it comes to arbitrations in the condo world. And as I said, many people can't even get the paperwork done right to get any. So let's conclude with this. This is where I walked in. It's where I'm walking out. This is one of the entrances to Sarasota Bayfront Park. A beautiful park. If you're in this area, come down and check it out. There's a place called Marina Jack's. I've never been there, but it seems like a nice place. But people talk about it right here. And there is a beautiful park that you can walk through like I just did. And there's lots of things to kind of see, relax. If you like to ride these bikes and scooters, there's plenty of those available too.